we find that they disobeyed God and they were scattered among the nations. By the time you get to the book of Ezra, you will find where Israel is being deported back, not deported, but being set free from Assyrian and Babylonian captivity. And we find that they were being sent back to Jerusalem in stages under Ezra, Zerubbabel, and Nehemiah. And when you get to Nehemiah chapter 1, Nehemiah prays to God, and he prays in essence in reference to the covenant of blessing and cursing. That God did in fact say, if you disobey my voice, that I will scatter you among the people. But then Nehemiah reminded God, but you said if we obey you and keep your covenant, that you would bless us and you would restore us back to our land. And so Nehemiah prayed about that in chapter 1. And then you know the book of Nehemiah is the restoration of the wall of Jerusalem and bringing Jerusalem back to a state of prosperity. Now, that historically gives us a great picture of how God was unfolding his scheme within the history of mankind and in the history of Israel. So God is preserving the seed promise, he fulfilled his land promise, and then of course the seed promise is fulfilled in the person of Christ. So that brings us to a more specific look now at the historical progression of the promised seed. That's really the essence of understanding the scheme of redemption, is how God is progressing the seed promise. Now, in chapter 8, we begin to see, in terms of lesson text, that Matthew 1, Luke 3, and Genesis 5 are going to be some of the best, the main focal points of lesson chapter 8. And we find that in the Gospel of Matthew and Luke, there is the stating that these are the generations of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Again, announcing this seed promise. Luke begins with Jesus and carries the genealogy all the way back to Adam. That's Luke chapter 3. These are not meaningless genealogies. These are important records of the historical progression of God's seed line to save man from sin. They show God's reliability to fulfill his salvation promise. So here again, Luke 3 and Matthew 1 are the tracing of a genealogical structure that helps to argue that Jesus Christ did in fact come down a specific lineage. One lineage is tracing his legal right to the throne. That is, because he is the son of David and he is the son of Abraham, we find this is a legal argument to the throne. And we find that, of course, his father Joseph is the one, that's the lineage that's being traced in Matthew chapter 1. He's being traced from Joseph. And because he is the supposed son of Joseph, he has legal right to the throne. But Luke 3 is his physical lineage. That is, his lineage goes from back to Adam. And so we see that Jesus can be traced all the way back physically to Adam, while he has legal right to the throne because he is the son of Joseph, and Joseph is of the offspring and lineage of David and Abraham. He has both legal right to the throne and he has biological right to the throne, because Luke 3 is a tracing of his physical lineage. Are y'all following that? Jesus has right both ways. Legal right, biological right to the throne of David. And so Matthew 1 and Luke 3 are tracing the genealogy of Jesus, giving a genealogical argument to his right to the throne of David and his right to rule as king on the throne of God. So we find in under B that the tracing of the seed line from Adam to Abraham, we find that being traced all the way through Genesis chapter 5, beginning in Genesis 3:15. And then, of course, we find that the seed of the woman was Jesus, who at the cross bruised the serpent's head. Now turn your Bible to 1 John 3:8, so we can see that the focal point is Jesus Christ and his work to overcome the works of the devil. 1 John chapter 3. 1 John 3 and verse 8. 1 John 3 and verse 8. Jesus was manifested that he might destroy the works of the devil. We're going to read verse number 8 and verse 8 in particular. The one who practices sin is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. The Son of God appeared for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil. Okay, we find this is an allusion to Genesis 3:15. Remember, Genesis 3:15 says he would bruise Satan's head. Now John takes away the figurative language of Genesis 3:15, makes it more explicit. And he says what Jesus came to do is destroy the works of the devil. You follow that? So what does it mean to bruise the head of Satan? It means to destroy the works of the devil. Does that make sense? Jesus is manifested for that very purpose. Now, before I go on here, okay, look at Hebrews 2 verse 14. Hebrews 2 and verse number 14. This is all articulating the ministry of Jesus to destroy the works of the devil. If the devil is going to be defeated, he is defeated in the work of Jesus. Jesus' complete victory over Satan is our dependence and our confidence that we have victory. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, reading Hebrews 2:14, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and might set those free from the fear of death who was subject to slavery all of their lives. So again, we're finding that the work of Jesus to even conquer death is now viewed very explicitly in Hebrews 2:14. He came to destroy the works of the devil. And now we see that he also came to eradicate us from the fear of death. Jesus Christ is the one that will bruise the head of Satan, destroy his works. Does that make sense? All right. Now I want you to look also at Luke 11, verse 21 and 22. Jesus is stronger than the devil and defeated the devil in his own domain. That's Luke 11, verse 21 and verse number 22 articulate this truth. Luke 11:21. When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own house, he possesses, his possessions are undisturbed. But when someone stronger than he attacks him and overpowers him, he takes away from him all that his armor on which he had relied, and distributes his plunder. He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me is scattered. Jesus is now articulating here that he is the strong man that has come to overpower Satan. He uses it in parabolical form. In other words, he uses the illustration of a strong man fully armed guarding his house and his possessions undisturbed. But when someone stronger than him comes, he is able to plunder and distribute his possessions. What does that mean? Jesus is making a very clear indication, I'm stronger than Satan. Does that make sense? And he's using it in illustration form. I am stronger than Satan. I'm more powerful than Satan. So a person has to come to the mindset that Jesus Christ, in all of his glory, is more powerful than Satan. To which whatever Satan has done, Jesus Christ is more powerful and able to bring solution to the havoc that the devil is trying to cause. Does that make sense? Jesus is stronger than Satan. Now, that being the case, we find in Genesis 5 where the tracing of the seed is from Seth to Noah. Cain murdered Abel. This was Satan's attempt to stop the seed line. Seth chosen through whom the seed would come, Genesis 4:25. So we find Seth begot Enos, Enos begot Kenan, Kenan begot Maheliel, Maheliel begot Jared, Jared begot Enoch, Enoch begot Methuselah, Methuselah begot Lamech, Lamech begot Noah, Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So we're finding in Genesis 5 this tracing again of the genealogy through whom Jesus is going to come. Is everybody clear about that? We find under C, page 43, the promises renewed to Isaac and Jacob. Genesis 26 verse 4, Genesis 28 verse 10 through 15, we find Isaac is told that in his seed, all nations of the earth were going to be blessed, and Jacob was told the same thing. Again, Abraham begot Isaac, Isaac begot Jacob. These are not just genealogies, but the tracing again of the line through whom Jesus is going to come. The promise was also going to come through the tribe of Judah, Genesis 49 verse number 1. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, neither the lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. The promise went from Judah to David. 2 Samuel 7, verse 11 through 16. That's under E in your handout. The book of Genesis traces the historical development of the seed promise from Adam to the flood, to the worldwide famine, to the tribe of Judah. At that point, we focused upon David, who was of the tribe of Judah, as the one out of that tribe through whom the seed should come. So Judah would give birth to Jesus. You know the story of Judah, and you know how Judah had twins through Tamar, and then we find through Perez, through his line would come Boaz, and Boaz married a woman named Ruth. And we find from Ruth and Boaz came the person of Obed, and Obed begot Jesse. And then Jesse gives birth to David the king. And the end of Ruth ends with a genealogy. And that genealogy ends with David. And we find in 2 Samuel 7, verse 12 to 14, David is said to be carrying the seed promise. And that seed was going to establish a kingdom, that seed was going to sit on the throne, and that seed was going to establish a house for his name. Everybody clear about that? Ruth, of course, if you look under the two historical connecting links in Genesis, you find in Genesis 38, Judah's immorality is mentioned. The seed line from Perez to David is recorded in Ruth 4, 18 through 22. And then, of course, the genealogies of Matthew and Luke. Matthew traces the seed line through Joseph's genealogy. I told you that earlier. Through David's son Solomon. Luke traces the seed line through Mary. The genealogy through David's son Nathan. Both genealogies from David back to Abraham are in agreement. So if you study Luke 3 and you study Matthew 1, you will find from David back the genealogies are identical. They get different when you get beyond that because they're traced. One is traced from Mary, while one is traced through Joseph. So if you read, when you go home, read Matthew 1, Luke 3, from David back, you find identical agreement. But then from David forward, you find where there is difference because one is tracing from Mary, one is tracing from Joseph. That's why you find the difference. Both are arguing that Jesus Christ has right to the throne of David. Y'all following that? Luke 3, genealogy, I think it starts at about verse number 23. And then Matthew 1, beginning in verse 1. So now, in looking at lesson 8, what you're seeing, what's being pressed, what's being emphasized, is the notion that Jesus Christ comes through a specific lineage. Now, what's the doctrine that comes out of that? Theologically, we're now looking at this doctrine of providence, that God was able to sovereignly govern providentially the coming of Jesus. What does that do for you and I doctrinally? It lets us know that God can be trusted, that God will fulfill his promises, that God is so trustworthy that he protected Jesus Christ all through the Old Testament history to ensure that our Savior was going to come into this world. Well, if God can do that, then it begs the question, what can't he do? Right? You see how we start looking at the bigger umbrella now. If God can protect Jesus and preserve the specific seed line all through the years of Old Testament history, and he could bring Jesus down a specific genealogy to ensure that our Savior would get there to save you and I from sin, if God could do that, it begs the question, what can't God do? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Does that make sense? You got to put it in a larger perspective. It's one thing to be impressed with the history of the genealogical argument and the seed promise. It's another thing to look at the bigger picture, to look at the microcosm, or rather the macrocosm of this. The macrocosm of this says God is faithful. God can be trusted. That whatever God says he's going to do, he will do. If God be for us, who can be against us? Those scriptures now make sense. Right? All things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. Well, it makes sense. Of course that's the truth. Look at what God did in protecting Jesus. look at what God did in bringing our Savior into the world. Look at the meticulous way God worked to make sure that you and I would be saved. If God could do that, well, what can he do? It gives me a different level of confidence in God, yes.
And it's interesting that God didn't use so-called perfect people.
Yes, yes. Well, it speaks to his power. That God was able, not only is God faithful, but God is powerful enough to use vessels that are extremely imperfect to bring about and give birth to a perfect will. Right? So God's will is perfect, work through imperfect people. That's the power. That's kind of what my sermon is saying. It's the power of God to use imperfect people to work out a perfect will. Okay? Somehow God can do that. He can use imperfect people to work out a perfect will. A perfect will to bring about his glory through imperfect people. That's the power of God. And that is the providence of God. And that is God to be trusted. Okay? Yes?
So when you look at the genealogy and you look at the different women that are in Jesus, you know, where he comes from,
right.
You don't see, not everybody is Jewish.
Absolutely.
Which I find so fascinating,
right.
That they are so hung up on being Jewish and don't want to accept
right.
anything else. But when you look at Jesus,
right.
he's like a mixture of a lot of different.
Sure he is. Sure he is. Well, I mean, it's one of the sore spots of the genealogy for any Jew would be the inclusion of Rahab.
Yes.
That would be a sore spot. That Rahab was actually of the land of Canaan. You know, they went to spy out the land, and remember, Rahab is not a Jew, but she's in the genealogy. Does that make sense?
So the purity bloodline then doesn't really...
No, not in reference to the legitimacy of Jesus. It makes no difference, because God, of course, if God was trying to make an interesting point, it would be that there is a Gentile in Jesus' genealogy. I mean, and now it would be God making the point that I am a universal Savior, and not just limited to the Jewish ethnicity. Right? So again, it speaks to that larger picture that God can be trusted. God is faithful, God is providential, and he is true to his promises. Does that make sense? Any questions on the power of lesson 8? Now it's interesting when you read 2 Samuel 7, which we'll hang out on. Peter's going to refer to that in Acts 2. 2 Samuel, let's read that. We'll end with this. 2 Samuel 7, verse 12 through 14 is a powerful prophecy that Peter alludes to in Acts the 2nd chapter in demonstrating the legitimacy of Jesus to sit on the throne of David. It's a powerful text. So when you read 2 Samuel 7, verse 12, Samuel 7, verse 12. When your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendants after you, who will come forth from you. This is David talking to David. And I will establish his kingdom. I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be to me a son. I want to show you how that verse is used in the New Testament to demonstrate the legitimacy of Jesus. All right, now watch. Go to Acts 2. I want you to meet me in verse 30. Verse 30. Acts 2 verse 30 says, and so because he was a prophet, and knew that God had sworn to him an oath to sit one of his descendants on his throne. Now the context is about David. Let's make sure we understand that. Look at verse 29. This is Peter. Brethren, I may confidently say to you regarding the patriarch David, that he is both dead and buried, and his tomb is with us to this day. You see that? So Peter now is referencing the historical person of David. Then he said, and so because he was a prophet, that is David, he knew that God had sworn to him with an oath to seat one of his descendants on his throne. He looked ahead and that spoke of the resurrection of the grass. See? So now when Nathan told David that that God is going to raise up one of your descendants in 2 Samuel, Peter alludes to that in Acts 2:30 and says when David heard that, that was in reference to Christ and his resurrection. Are you following? The whole kingdom motif of Jesus establishing the kingdom in the Old Testament is about Jesus ascending to the throne by resurrection. Does that make sense? Powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. That these prophecies that were 700 and thousands of years prior to the coming of Jesus are announcing that he's coming to sit on the throne. Peter says, when you saw the resurrection, that was the fulfillment of 2 Samuel 7. Jesus has ascended to sit on the throne of David. Does that make sense? And Peter does not have to argue about whether the resurrection was legitimate because it was public. It was public. He says at the beginning of his sermonic presentation, he says, you men of Israel, listen, he did miracles and wonders and signs right in the midst of you, as you yourselves also know. Now the tomb is empty. You know the tomb is empty. He was seen of over 500 brethren at the same time. Peter does not have to argue the validity of the resurrection because it was witnessed. So all he has to now do is put the resurrection in proper perspective. What happened when Jesus rose from the dead? He ascended to sit on the throne. Does everybody see that? Y'all gonna make me preach that sermon. That's just right. That's just right. That's what he did. He doesn't have to argue resurrection. He's not even worried about arguing validity. See, we argue that today because there are people who haven't witnessed it. But back then, Peter didn't have to make the argument for the validity of the resurrection. Jesus did that by making the resurrection public. So now Peter says, now that you know he rose and that the tomb is empty, now let me tell you what happened with that resurrection. He is now sitting on the throne of David. Therefore, that all the house of Israel know assuredly, the same Jesus whom you crucified, God made him Lord in Christ. How do you know? He's sitting on the throne and you witness the resurrection. That's how that works. Amen. So that's the power of looking at Jesus from a soteriological perspective. I'm preaching Jesus Sunday. I'm going through something else. It's just really good stuff. And it gives you the confidence that God is true to his promise. And it is a powerful text that suggests that Jesus Christ is sitting now on the throne of David. And it's a powerful text, 2 Samuel. And not only that, these are what we call coronation arguments. Coronation argument is that the idea is arguing the kingship of Jesus. He's king. We ain't got to argue that he raised. We know he rose. But the implication of his raising is that he's now a reigning king. To be obeyed. And will come back again to judge. Know that. Right. So that is resurrection theology. When you start looking at Jesus and his resurrection, the implications of the resurrection is incredible. And I'm trying to, I'm going to do some things later, but I'm trying to, for the month of December, I'm trying to do a resurrection series, only because this is the time of year everybody's thinking about Jesus. And I think this is the time of year where everybody wants to talk about Jesus, they want to think about Jesus, but they're thinking about baby Jesus. They need to think about resurrected Jesus. All right now. And they think about baby Jesus. I'm happy for baby Jesus too, but you might need to know that baby grew up and is now reigning. And so you need to know something about resurrection theology is what I'm hoping to establish. How do we put in perspective the resurrection of Jesus? We don't have to necessarily argue it was witnessed. So we don't have to, resurrection is not even something to be necessarily proven. It was proven. It is something to be understood. What are the implications of resurrection? Right? And that's really where we want to go on with this series on the resurrection starting Tuesday. Starting on Sunday. And really help people to put that in perspective. Is everybody clear so far? Good deal. Good deal. Okay, stay where you are. We'll try to rush through that.
Yes, yes.
So Sunday, bring somebody with you. I'm going to be encouraging people to bring visitors. This starting really for the month of December, but we want to. We won't be here much longer, so I'd like to leave with a bang and just preach Jesus for the rest of the time we're here, and just establish what it is we believe. And so Sunday morning, let's make it happen. And let's get busy, bring somebody with you, spread the word. And we're excited about what's going to be taking place. I was over at the building last night, about 5 o'clock, went over there just to look. And of course, it's coming along well. I have a few concerns that I saw yesterday, but I'll talk to the leaders about it. But the building itself is really coming along well. So painting is looking good. And I saw the nursery was painting all these crazy colors, green and blue. And I guess my wife picked up colors because she's over the nursery. But I got a chance to see that. The auditorium paint looks finished. So now it just looks like it's about the flooring. And then building the stage. The stage is now being constructed. So we're really not that far off. I mean, this thing is moving pretty rapidly. We're not that far off. We're not that far off. We were aiming toward a New Year's Eve entrance. It's still up in the air. We don't know. But I hope so. And the way it's moving looks pretty phenomenal. But just pray for us. Pray for us that it'll come through. And if it's not New Year's Eve, it'll be sometime in January. So, but I'm hoping New Year's will be ready. But it's coming along great. Low concern, that stage was a little low. I just want to make sure we raise it high enough. And I don't know if it's possible to do that now, but I just want to make sure everybody can see. They'll see screens, of course. It means there's screens everywhere. But we'll see what we can do with that. But anyway, keep that all in prayer. We actually keep all the sick shut in prayer as well. And of course, I want to thank Bill and Tommy for teaching me when I'm not here. I appreciate both of these men for filling in. Because I see no reason I won't be here. I don't leave again until February, so I'm home for a good stretch of time. And even when I leave in February, it's like I leave in February, then I don't leave again until like May or something. It's real sporadic. Only because the building will be up and I can't be gone with so much. You got to be here to deal with the influx of people that will be coming. I hope y'all are ready for it. I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people coming through that building, and we've got to be ready for it. And, no, I'm not. I'm actually taking a retreat in February to get ready because right now I know I'm not ready. Mentally, I'm not ready, and I need to get ready. I'm going to take about a week to just go somewhere and to process all that's about to happen and that kind of thing, because I'm not ready. I've been overly stressed. The devil has launched pretty significant attacks in my personal life, and I'm trying to navigate that. I believe the devil is strategic in when he attacks. I believe he's strategic in how he attacks. And I'm going through very significant struggles in my personal life. And I have no qualms in telling you that. But I do believe it's all strategically launched by the devil at this time. So just pray for all of us, as I can tell you. And yeah, they told me massage therapy works, all that. Yeah, so just February, I'm taking a week before dedication, before our big dedication. I'm taking a week to go. I don't know where I'm going. I'm going somewhere. Maybe Jamaica or something. Just lay on the beach and look at the sun.
Look, just make sure you come back. Got access to get back.
I will. I got cold feet, and I do. I'm scared.
I know.
And I'm okay. I'm scared. This is a big move. I told somebody, I'll let you know, I told somebody, ministry for a preacher is often very different for a lot of reasons. But one is he takes it home a lot differently than any other leader. Yes. because this is his calling on his life, you know. And then number two, you know, this is not only my calling, this is my livelihood. This is what I do. This is everything I do. You know, I mean, I don't do nothing. I do ministry. And so when something's your livelihood and it's your calling, you go home with it differently than any other leader. And sometimes you want leaders to even understand that a preacher wears this differently than anybody else. And, you know, you want to be sensitive to that. And because he wears it differently. This is how my family eats, you know. This is, you know, other people go home, go to their job, and, you know, they leave church alone. For me, this is it. This is everything for me. So I know that's hard for some people to understand. But yeah. So just keep it clean. That's all I can say. Heavenly Father, thank you. We love you. You're a tremendous God. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for the scheme of redemption and giving us the confidence that if you could bring Jesus into the world, then there's nothing you can't do. We thank you, God, for your power, your providence. Help us to build extreme trust in you. As we move forward, we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, called according to your purpose. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.